So this is the next video in our continuing series, and I want to start moving on to the seventh girl of the seven, but let me wrap up my escape trip out of the U.S. If this doesn't make any sense to you, you probably want to go back to the previous videos. So, and I'm not going to get into the details of why, they're not important, but just letting you know that by me escaping to another country without anyone knowing where I was, I started making payments on my own through various channels of child support and alimony, but very, very low payments that I could afford. And I developed a history of that over the months that I was out of the country. And that, when I came back, that helped me stay out of jail when I returned to the States. Now, I also last time I covered some passages that God gave me when I was opening the Bible randomly right before I left the country. If you watched the previous video, you know that that would have been the Sunday night and then everything that transpired that week. But one of the other passages that I got, that I landed on that Sunday night, was God telling me that He would be bringing me back to the States after some time. And I remember that was one of the passages that I kind of internally rejected or wanted to reject, or I didn't like it. I didn't like what it said, and I just kind of glossed over it. Because I thought I was moving permanently elsewhere and I was going to marry that girl. So I did not like what that passage had to say. And here is the passage. It told me I would be going and returning. This is what I got that Sunday night. And notice it says escape to Egypt. It's like if I was escaping to this other country. And it says, when they had gone, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, take the child and his mother, and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you. Then he got up in the middle of the night and left for Egypt. And he didn't tell anybody. So I was also getting the message of not telling anybody. It was implied here. Now, the rest of it was here, the return. And it says that get up, take the child and his mother, go back to the land of Israel. So this whole part here is the return. I returned not because I wanted to, but because I was forced to. Again, the details don't matter. The point is, I'm back in the States, and I was so angry at God, and I was accusing Him, and why am I back in the States? And that's when He reminded me of the passage that He had given me earlier, where He had warned me that I was not going to be staying forever, that it was temporary. We are just about ready to jump back to discussing the seventh girl of the seventh, but that girl, oh man, she did a number on me. I did a number on myself. That's where I misunderstood God, what God was telling me. It wasn't that He wasn't speaking to me, but I was misunderstanding. But before I can start with her, I got to introduce a Bible story that I was exposed to first, in 2007. So I'm married now in 2007. So I've come back from that other country. I met somebody, fell in love, whatever. We started dating. We got engaged. We got married, and we're at the end. I would say October, maybe 2007, early October, maybe a little earlier. And I thought my marriage was okay, but all I can tell you is I remember walking into Walmart. I know exactly where I was. I had just walked through the exterior doors, and I'm about to enter in, and I just prayed, not almost out loud, but not quite. And I just God, when am I ever going to get? When am I ever going to feel commitment? And I didn't even finish my almost audible prayer when I heard a voice inside my head. It was crystal clear. It was just one word, and it said Gomer. And I knew the story of Hosea and Gomer in the Bible, and I'll cover it in a second. But I remember hearing that, and then I went to my house, and my second wife is in the kitchen washing dishes, and I stood over there and watched her, and then I told her what happened, and I was very scared to tell her what happened at the Walmart because I thought she might feel insulted, but something in me was like compelling me to tell the story of what happened. No sooner than I tell a story that she quietly turns the water off, turns around, looks at me very calmly, and says, "I'm more of a Gomer than you might think." And that started the events which led eventually to her divorcing me at early 2008, my second wife. She had been having an affair. I don't want to go over the details of that because I really just wanted to point out that was the first time that the Bible story of Hosea started getting personal to me. As a wrap up to what I just told you with the story of my second ex-wife, there were two ways God spoke to me then. One was essentially almost inside my head, almost an audible voice, and like an impression or a compelling feeling of having to tell the story to my ex-wife, which then caused her to confess. In the Bible, there is a short book by the name of the book is Hosea, and Hosea was a prophet. God led him to marry what was essentially the town harlot, and her name was Gomer. She was very unfaithful. I won't go into the why of all of the story or anything like that, or why God had him marry Gomer. But over time, God did use that story to talk to me, and He specifically gave me at least two verses that have been key for myself. One of the verses is chapter 3, verse 1. And the Lord said to me, "Go show love to your wife again, though she is loved by another man." And you can read the rest of it. So that verse stuck in my head. And the other passage of Hosea that stuck in my head was chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. "Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but He will heal us. He has injured us, but He will bind up our wounds. After 2 days, He will revive us. On the third day, He will restore us." Those two verses stayed with me since that time in late 2007 when I confronted my then second wife about her infidelity. And I've kept getting them all this time from then till now. I believe we'll come back to them in a later video when I finally get around to telling about my current situation. But I wanted to mention it now because the overall story of Hosea was on my mind by the time I met the seventh girl of the seven, and I think because of my misunderstanding, it led to what I'm about, I'll eventually get into about the story of the seventh. Okay, so we are finally ready to tell the story of number 7. And I believe by now it is 2011. And so I'm thinking like something like here, maybe 2011. And this one's a little different. There were two female friends of mine. They had heard about a charter bus trip to Orlando, Florida, with a church group of singles, and that they were going to go to this theme park, and that I had like 1 day left to buy a ticket to go. I was, again, I'm doing really bad. Again, because I'm going through these 7, and I don't have any time to process any of the feelings and the letdowns. I haven't really processed either of the 2 divorces or the ending of the relationship in that other country with that girl that I met online. There's a lot of pent up and unprocessed stuff inside of me, gunk, baggage. So the last thing I want to do is try to pretend and smile and go on this day-long bus trip and theme park excursion. I just don't want to do that. But they insisted, and I remember again mixing in the how God talks to you. I remember starting to get this impression that maybe God was behind this and He wanted me to go. So the next day was the meetup to where the bus was going to be to then go on the trip. It's Friday after late afternoon, right at 5 work, end of the work day. I'm driving home wherever I live. I don't even remember, and I know where I was. I'm about to get on the highway, and I just prayed. I said, Lord, if you are behind this and you want me to go on this bus trip, I named by name one of the two female friends. I just picked one. I named that one, and I said, would you have her call me right now and really insist that I go? And I'm not kidding you. The second I prayed that prayer, my phone rings. It was that girl, and she was insisting that I go. So I said, okay, I'll go. I'm going to cut the video right here. We'll take up in the next one the actual morning of the trip and how I met the seventh and so on.